Hello guys, my name is Nash. Welcome to Thursday Tales of Terror, TTT. Today's story is very bizarre. You might have heard stories of people having uncommon hobbies or collections, and by that, I mean it's not usually what most people would do. I have heard of people collecting back scratches, soap bars, Coca-Cola cans, love dolls, hot sauce, and many more. But today, we're diving into this young man's collection of bones. His name is John Ferry, and he doesn't just collect them, he also buys and sells them, which makes this highly controversial. And this topic is not something new. It has been discussed before in 2015. It was a hot topic among Tumblr users then. Apparently, there was a New Orleans resident by the name of Ender Darling who would visit the nearby Holt Cemetery once a month to take human remains. Excess rainwater would wash the poorly buried bones to the surface. Darling would take them and allegedly use the remains for curse work and general spells. Darling posted on Facebook about having human bones for use in witchcraft and offered to send bones to other witches if they cover the cost of shipping. A fellow New Orleans resident shared Darling's post on Facebook and asked people to spread the word. The post made its way to Tumblr, where it caused a huge spark of outrage. Darling, who does not identify as a man or woman but as a bruja, which is Spanish for witch, was charged with burglary as well as the possession of marijuana when the police searched her home. Darling pled guilty to all charges and was fined and sentenced to 5 years probation on theft charge and 15 days on possession with credit for time served. So for this case, it became a crime because she stole those human bones from the cemetery, and many people have actually compared John Ferry to her. So on to John Ferry's case that we're going to be talking about today. John Pichaya Ferry was born in Thailand and is famously known as JonsBones. He is a 22-year-old student and bone salesman. He has an extensive collection of bones in his home. Human skulls line his shelves. Spines hang on a wall in his showroom. More than 100 backbones from unknown people gathered in perpetual show.
The video is finally here. It's the JonsBones Human Spine Collection. Alright, so as you guys might or might not know, I actually have, and I claim, the largest human spine collection in the entire country.
He worked with these bones every day, and he would talk about these bones in his TikTok account. And if you didn't know, his TikTok account has more than 500,000 followers with more than 22 million likes. He also displays his rarest finds, including the skulls of fetuses and toddlers. His cat Chong makes frequent appearances, and fans can even buy JonsBones merchandise. With the TikTok platform, John definitely introduced the bones trade to a whole new audience of younger people. But this has also invited sharp backlash to his business and its moral implications. Other TikTok users have made videos questioning the legality and ethics of the human remains trade, which John maintains he participates in for educational purposes. Now the question is, how do human beings' remains end up in a collection, and is it legal? Before we get into this, let's try to understand how John's obsessions with bones came about. John admires and respects the structures of bones. When he was 13, his father gave him an articulated or fully assembled mouse skeleton for his birthday that piqued his interest in osteology. As he learned more about the medical bone trade, he identified what he considers a fundamental problem. People have bones and they don't know what to do with them. Until just a few decades ago, it was common for medical students to keep a half or full skeleton in their closet for school. John says many families no longer want these bones, and he sees it as his job to find them appropriate homes. In 2018, John moved to New York. He is a student at Parsons School of Design. He often incorporates his knowledge of bones into his designs, so classmates would call him the bone guy. Aside from this, John would hand out business cards in Times Square every Friday for months to promote his business. He managed to sell a few bones every now and then. After John became an internet sensation, he started forming a team. He no longer needed to hand out flyers, and slowly he was selling about 20 to 80 pieces of human bones every month. And when people say you can buy almost anything on the internet, it's true. Who would have thought you could buy human bones online? John has an official website for his bones called JonsBones. His strong presence on the internet has many people forming and joining discussion groups about him on various social media platforms. Some were disapproving of his collections and would leave angry comments on his social media. His website says it only sells medical osteology or bones specifically prepared to train medical students. John says he's recirculating bones that would otherwise collect dust in someone's basement and offering valuable services to people who may otherwise never interact with real human bones. In other words, he wants to make bone study accessible. If you look through his website under the category Various Bones, the cheapest is human teeth that cost $14. But if you look at the other categories, the prices are extremely high, with some of the bones like skulls costing about a few $1,000s, which many people don't see how that is accessible. And people can't help to be wary of the bones' origins. Where did these human bones truly come from? Many believe that these human bones were stolen from graves and forcibly brought into the educational field. But John is very firm that everything he does is ethical and legal. He believes the most respectful path forward is to continue selling the bones. It's our goal to get these pieces and try to make sure that they're preserved and used for the purposes that they were intended for, he said. Not too long ago, there was an uproar on TikTok with rising concerns about JonsBones. The company and founder John himself continues to receive backlash from users on the platform and has been frequently challenged by other creators to publicly show imminent proof of the responsibly sourced human remains that he and his company claim to be ethical. John and his company continued to come under fire when further concerns were raised about his possession of indigenous human remains. And their response to the concerns? They went to block the TikTok creators who have called them out, make an alternate account to follow them and watch what they say about them. Something is definitely not right here. Now let's look deeper into the company JonsBones. The company claims to be the leading provider of medical human osteology. However, there is only one osteologist, Rhiannon, who only has an undergraduate, a BA in anthropology from the University of Tennessee, and a team of 5 other designers. For a company that is dedicated to making osteology more accessible for everybody, most of the people involved are not actually qualified in that specific field. Do note that John himself is neither an anthropologist nor a forensic osteologist, and the very same osteologists had their staff profile blurred, though all staff profiles but John's have mysteriously disappeared from the company site.
The only person who actually does have a background in this stuff is this person named Rhiannon, who doesn't want to be identified.
What does this mean? Do they not want to associate themselves with the company? And if so, why? Additionally, it turns out that Rhiannon does not even physically touch the remains and only analyze them through photographs. On the website, there is a page called Sell to Us. On this page, Steph, who has a PhD in archaeology, pointed out on TikTok that John and his company failed to mention that they are only looking to purchase only medical human remains. And after clicking the first continue button, there is the line, paperwork is not required and neither is a license, which is rather alarming. Why would you not keep some form of documentation of who is providing the bones and get a background check on the seller and even the remains themselves? Shouldn't the process be more stringent considering it is used for educational and medical purposes? What happens if these remains were obtained illegally? And what about the buyers? One TikTok user by the name of the Hex Cure recorded herself trying to purchase an 8-month development fetal skull which cost $3,750. According to her, this is something that should only be sold to teaching professionals, universities, and museums. Now, as she proceeded to check out, the description did state that due to the sensitivity of this item, it will only be available to medical institutions or working professionals. And that's how it should be. But there was nothing on the form that asked to verify credentials. It went straight to payment. But I'm not sure if they would ask for any verification after the payment is done. With that said, buyers can do whatever they want after purchasing the bones. They will never know if it's for medical purposes. Experts say buyers of human bones often do not look at them as educational tools. Instead, the bones are sometimes turned into jewelry, chandeliers, and more. Imagine donating your body to science only to end up in a collector's possession or being sold around. That's pretty disrespectful. When asked how he owns so many bones, John explained that in the US, there is no federal regulation on the ownership, sale, or possession of human osteology, so it's completely legal. Many people highlighted that he is in possession of indigenous bones, those of the Dalit and the Sami. He was definitely selling a Sami skull on his website, but it's taken down.
Number one, he absolutely was selling a Sami skull. Surprise, surprise, it's not on his website anymore. But I wouldn't be surprised if more of the bones had indigenous origins. But we also need more of y'all animals swarming on this video from 2 hours ago. He talks about how most of these bones come from China, Russia, and India, and the ones from India are from lower caste or Dalit people who weren't allowed to be buried, and their bones were sold off to the medical field. Just about the least ethical thing I can think of. Needless to say, they gave zero consent to any of this, are an incredibly oppressed people. He doesn't seem to give a single shit.
John explained on TikTok that many of the remains in his collection come from China, India, and Russia, and India being the largest supplier. They were likely that of very poor people, particularly of lower caste. He added that the remains were cleaned in India before Western companies bought and distributed them to private collectors. John also said that his company's goal is to source what's left of those remains from private collectors and put them back into the medical community. Even with this explanation, it's still not very clear if these bones are collected ethically. The thing is, the medical bone trade is not ethical because in modern times, poor and marginalized groups are often financially pressured into giving up their bodies over to science, a decision they may not have made otherwise. There is also a history of colonizers grave robbing indigenous people and stealing their bodies for osteological collection or science regardless of the belief and wishes of said indigenous people. So how can he prove that his remains were ethically sourced? And again, he has no control over what the buyer will do after purchasing the bones. So to believe that these bones will be put back into the medical community is just too far-fetched. And when they saw that John was selling a Sami skull on his website, many were calling it disrespectful and disgusting because the right way would be to return the skull to the Sami community so it can have a proper burial. As mentioned earlier, as John is gaining more popularity, viewers started to draw comparisons to a case that I've mentioned earlier, the Ender Darling case, the one that steals bone from the grave. John was made aware of this comparison and he rejected it by assuring viewers that his bones are only bought from people who have medical specimens they no longer want or have use for. He said medical bones can be distinguished from others by the telltale signs of medical preparation, and he tries to get as much information as possible about the bone's origins when he makes a purchase. According to him, a lot of these skulls are inherited or they come from yard sales and estate sales. The majority of skulls in the market are inherited from previous owners, so tracking down authentic origins is extremely challenging. Despite the blowback he's received from publicizing his business, he's just happy people are talking about the medical bone trade. But I can't imagine any one of these people consented to their bodies being bought and sold like this. What do you guys think?
I was so excited to be done talking about JonsBones, but then I saw this. That is the one and only John using a real human femur as a twirling baton. And again, if we entirely set aside the whole discussion of responsible sourcing, I would hope that we all could agree about the issue of responsible handling of human remains. I spent some time going through his account, which I somehow have access to again, and there is just so much that's not okay. Here he is again in that same video, dancing with human spines. There are several videos where you can see that he has shoved cash into the mouths of different skeletons. In this video, he's showing how he packs orders and how he takes his merch and stuffs it into the cranium like it's some sort of human goodie box. Of course, the femur with his business name carved in it. He is constantly dressing up the skeletons in different outfits with different accessories and sunglasses and hats. When he goes to pick up a skeleton, not only does he dress it up in his ball cap, but he puts it in the back of his car, which is not a safe way to transport it. He runs out of room for his spines in his apartment, so he stores them with his cleaners. Here he is showing off a skeleton in his closet with his winter clothes. There are so many videos where there are bones just laid all over the floor, and very often in his videos, the floor is covered in trash and cat food and dirty laundry. Here he just lays one down on a sewer grate. There's also the issue of his pets playing with the bones and laying on the bones. There's a video I forgot to include here where he's laughing about how his cat is kicking around a whole bunch of vertebral bones that have been unarticulated. A lot of times the pets are putting the bones at risk of being damaged. This is a video where he and his friend are laughing about his friend's gecko crawling around inside the eye socket of this skull until it crawls through where the optic nerve would go, and they have to open up the skull cap and actually take the gecko out of the cranium. And then of course there's this video of Chonk, which he actually took the time to post twice and described as his favorite video ever. At the same time, there's video after video where he says this.
Skulls are respected to the best of my ability. So they must be treated with the most respect and dignity. They are to be treated with respect and dignity. Most dignity and respect.
Like, you keep on using those words, but I don't think they mean what you think they mean. The other thing that absolutely shocked me when I was going through his content is how very little education he actually does. Very few videos include any information beyond just showing off of a skull and just saying how incredibly gorgeous it is. When his videos are informative, a lot of times they're actually collaborations with other creators. Or he'll take the same facts and he'll recycle them over and over, making 5, 10, 15 versions of the same video. He regularly uses the wrong terminology for things, but of course that shouldn't be surprising considering he has no formal education in osteology. He has an unfinished design degree, and he's taken a couple online 2-week courses in forensic anthropology. He justifies this by saying he has a licensed osteologist on his team. But there's no licensure for osteology. His staff member doesn't have the education requirements to become board certified. This whole situation just makes me sad and frustrated. His whole account is just a testament to why osteology should not be for everybody.
It's a lot to process, but let me know what are your thoughts. Stay safe, and I hope to see you guys again on Thursday.